part that's like, Ilu. It's the last line. That's the next one. I just want to skip to the very end.
Ah, okay.
That's the last line.
Having trouble finding it.
I don't find
Let's do
it
the
very
traditional one where it
No.
No. Lost it. It has
says
it.
service and not in this one.
We're gonna find it.
It's very chill.
Yeah, there it is.
In
Page
many Sederim,
112.
it's toward the beginning.
Right?
Yeah, so here we go. What's that? It's a nice one.
Let Rachel solo on the high part.
Yeah. Well, I sort of feel like we should start. Oh, for sure we do. Should we do that now or when we're for I don't have to be, but it'd be nice. One or the other. What do you think? Should we like give it another 5 before starting, or should we actually just kind of like get going? People. All right.
Okay.
I mean, I think we should start. Can't hear you, but what?
Folks are there.
Oh, great.
Oh, great.
Hi, guys.
Hi, good morning,
Good
good
morning.
Shabbos. I think that's great. So maybe should we wait to also give Daniel his talis till a little bit later, like maybe right before Shachri? Sure.
Put on ours now.
Yeah. Great. All right. All right. I'm gonna. Can you hold this for a moment? Good Shabbos. Good morning. Take a moment to wrap ourselves in light. Like it's the first nice day in a week here in Chicago. So there's a line, it's sort of a traditional line for when you're putting on a psalm, and it says, "Ba'orcha nirei or," through your light, we are bathed in light, or we see light. So this is a little invitation, a reminder, as we put on a talis right now, to change the way that we see once we put this on. It's like holiness goggles, or love goggles, or benefit of the doubt goggles, you know, as you let this talis rest on your shoulders, or presence goggles. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehitatef b'tzitzit.
Amen.
Amen.
I mean,
Daniel, we're gonna wait till a little bit later. There are a few more people here. Give yours. Thank you. All right, we're on page 10. Let's bless the morning. Ma tovu Shabbos. Good morning. Come on in. I know it's going to be hard to find a seat, but no, you'll figure it out. Welcome to Mishkan. We're just getting started. Want to invite people to, let's see. Let's do some blessings of the morning. We're going to turn to page 13, 14, 15, but start on 13. If you're able to stand, stand. But if you want to do these from a sitting position, you can do any of these things from a sitting position too. All right. My microphone prefers a sitting position. Okay. There's always a workaround. All right. So we'll start with the second blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lesech vivina lehavchin ben yom uven laila. I am grateful that you have given me understanding to see differences clearly as between day and night. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani b'tzalmo. You have made me in your image with unlimited potential. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani b'chorin. I am grateful that you have made me free with the ability to choose. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani Yisrael. I am grateful that you have made me a Jew with an enriching heritage, a God wrestler. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim. You open the eyes of the blind, providing sight and insight. Amen. Take a moment to look up from the page and just to take a look around the room and to see the room's filled in a little bit, to see the faces of folks who you may not know, but you will in the course of the next couple of hours here as we dive in together. It's nice to see people who are here for the first time. Welcome. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumim. You clothe the naked, providing shelter and boundaries. Amen. You want to take a couple of these, Rabbi Dina? We're on 14.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Let's unleash the part of our body that's often most locked, which is our wrists, because we do weird things with them that they weren't designed for. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufim. You straighten the bent, removing whatever pushes us down. Amen. Go and give yourself like a little lift from the ears. I love doing that. Just growing yourself a little bit. Sunlight, water, and a little bit of extra help. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rokah haaretz al hamayim. You have made the world a secure place where nature is governed by law. Amen. That translation.
And the earth is spread over the water. It's so obvious. It's just right there. Why not just translate it literally?
Yes.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa li kol tzarki. You provide me with skills and tools, enabling me to meet all my needs. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechin mitzadei gaver. You guide my steps, helping me walk on the intended path. Amen. Let's try and plant our feet on the ground, all four corners of your feet, the joint under your big toe and under your pinky toe, and both sides of your heels, and use that to help grow you a little from the bottom. Let me do the last one.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael b'gvura. Amen. That's an invitation to breathe into your belly. Girds our people with strength. Page 15. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oter Yisrael b'tifara. So now we've done feet on the earth, breathing into our belly, and this is about your crown. Being crowned with dignity and beauty, so standing up a little bit straighter. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hanoten liya'ef koach. You strengthen the weary, staying with us even when we are exhausted. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamavir shena me'enai, utnuma me'afapai. You remove sleep from my eyes and confusion from my mind. We're going to take a seat and we're going to turn to page 29. As we do this, as we go into Ashrei, I want to invite you to keep your feet, sort of the awareness of your feet on the floor, the awareness of your breath in your belly, the awareness of sitting up a little bit straighter, shoulders relaxed, head sort of confidently held high, and then to hold this word that's an invitation into the morning prayer service, Ashrei, which means joy. What brought you here this morning? Can you find a little bit of joy in this moment? In that you are here, you made it, whether virtually or in person? Mazel tov. For those of us who are celebrating the growth and potential of every person, and one particular person this morning, Mazel tov, celebrating the joy in that. For those of you who are celebrating the finding of love, celebrating the joy in that. For those of you who are like, I woke up this morning, period.
Amen.
Finding the joy in that. Ashrei Yoshvei to read down the psalm can.
hallelujah. Oh, yeah, hallelujah.
All right, so we turn to 33. The Talmud, the sort of, the biggest compendium of Jewish stories, ancient Jewish stories, has a lot of stories about people praying. The whole first section of the Talmud is about people praying. But the stories about people praying show up everywhere because everything in life at some point connects to like the yearning that's driving it, the motivation that's driving it. Why are we doing this? And then there's a story about why somebody is praying for rain or praying for healing or just praying in the morning. And so there's a story about Rabbi Akiva, and when he's leading prayer, he'll kind of stand in one place. But when he's alone, he might start on one side of the room, and he ends up at the other side of the room, and he doesn't even know how he got there. And the idea is like, well, when you're leading people, you might be a little self-conscious. You might not, I don't know, what might be the reason why you would, sort of be a little more reserved when you're leading, but when you're alone, you start over here and you end up over there. Like, I don't know. When you're, it's almost like, I don't know, singing in the shower when you're alone or something like that. Like when nobody's watching, all of a sudden you feel a little more free. And I am aware this morning that there's a little more space in this room than there often is, which is nice because it means that if you actually want to get up at any point and maybe have a little bit more space, stand up while you pray, dance a little, do your own thing. We usually have children, often my own, who are modeling this. In the back part of the room, definitely doing their own thing, definitely, not concerned or interested in what page we're on, just doing their own thing. That, my friends, is prayer. That actually is prayer, just complete presence and a sense of being truly in the moment. And so in whatever way, being on the page and in your seat and sort of hearing the melodies and the harmonies and opening your mouth and being part of that brings you into a sense of presence. So wonderful, great, that's the idea. And if it helps to close the book and to get up and close your eyes, walk around, meditate on the bones and ligaments in your feet, as you do, like, by all means, that's actually what we're here for. All right, we're on 33.
Hallelujah, hallelujah.
bouncy chair for next time.
These chairs are pretty bouncy.
Yeah.
I'm happy I discovered this new feature. All right. We turn to page 36. Rabbi Dina's been asking for this one. So we're on 36. If our mouths overflowed with song as the sea, if our tongues surged with joy as the waves, if our lips could praise as endlessly as the sky, if our eyes could match the sun's radiance, if our arms had the reach of eagle's wings, if our legs could carry us as far as the deer, even then, our God and God of our ancestors, our thanks wouldn't even come close to matching all of the gifts you have given to our fathers, to our mothers, and to us. All of the people who have birthed us into being in different ways, and by whose wisdom and teaching and love we are here. So this song comes in 3 parts. It's just actually the first line of that paragraph. So the first line sounds like this. Ilululu, ilululu, ilululu. It works really well for bass voices. Ilululu, ilululu, ilululu. Everybody can try that though. Here's the second part. Together the bass. And if you're a soprano, join Rachel. We're going to turn to 39. And is now a good time to present? Let's do it right before bar. Great. If you're able to stand, I invite you to stand with me, but we can do it on the next page too. Oh, and this microphone. Shochen ad maharom vekadosh shemo. וכתוב רננו צדיקים באדוני, לישרים נבע תהילה, בפי שרים תתרומם, ובדברי צדיקים תתברך, ובלשון חסידים תתקדש, ובקרב קדושים תתהלל, ובמקהלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל, ברינה יתפאר שמך מלכנו בכל דור ודור, שכן חובה
ואת כל היוצרים לבנך אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו להודות להלל לשבח לפאר לרומם להדר לברך להלל ולקלס על כל דברי שירות ותשבחות דוד בן ישי עבדך משיחך נשתבח שמך לעד מלכנו האל המלך הגדול קדוש בשמיים ובארץ כי לך נערנו ולאבותינו ואמותינו שיר ושפחה הלל וזמרה עוז וממשלה נצח גדולה גבורה תהילה ותפארת קדושה ומלכות ברכות והודאות מעתה ועד עולם ברוך אתה אדוני המלך גדול ותשבחות אל ההודאות אדון הנפלאות הבוחר בשירי זמרה מלך אחרי העולמים. All right, we are going to invite Craig and Ina and Daniel up to give Daniel his talit. A talit is one of the symbols in the Jewish community that says this person is an adult. This person is a member with standing in this community. And it's a way to mark that Daniel has reached his BMitzvah. So I'm actually going to invite you guys to come to this mic right here in the center so we can hear you if we're on the camera. And to present Daniel with this talit, which he will wear for the rest of this service and at other times when he takes on moments of Jewish leadership.
I think you guys are meant to put it on me.
Daniel, as we're presenting you with this talit, your babushka and dedushka, in anticipation of this day, had gotten you this talit many years ago. And we're reminded of the privilege and the responsibility to know one's culture and philosophy and morals and religion. There are so many Jews that so many times and places where haven't really had that privilege to be able to do that. Your mother being one of them, growing up and living in Ukraine, didn't have the same freedom that we do today. So something to appreciate. Very happy and proud of you and what you've learned and how you've embraced the opportunity to learn and to grow. So we hope this is just the beginning of your Jewish exploration for many years to come.
Yeah. Yeah, that way. Oh, yeah. No,
Yasher koach. Wear it in many more happy occasions.
We're going to continue to stand. We face east. We're on 42. Yeah, go for it.
Baruch hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer or v'orei choshech v'oseh shalom v'borei et hakol. You can be seated. Ein kerkecha Adonai Eloheinu
44.
b'olam hazeh ve'ein zulatecha malkeinu l'chayei ha'olam haba. Efes biltecha go'alenu limot hamashiach ve'ein dome lecha moshienu litchiat hametim.
You want to sing it down? Why not? Why not? We're on 45. El Adonai kol hamasim baruch u'mevorach lefi kol neshama godlo v'tuvo malei olam da'at u'tavuna sovev imoto nitga'eh hayot hakodesh nedar v'kavod
ראה והתקין תורת הבנה שבע נותנים לו כל צבע מרום תפארת וגדולה שרפים מאופנים בחיות הקודש Turn to 48. אורחנה של ציון תאיר ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורות ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות.
Okay, take a second, if you would. Look at page 49. 49. Look over the English. Read the first 3 paragraphs. Just read them to yourself. And if you had to summarize what this piece is saying, what this piece of liturgy is saying, how would you summarize it? Give you another second to look at it and think. Feel free to just speak. Talking about Torah as the expression of God's love. Where do you see that?
It starts off in the first paragraph with great love we love us, and then explains that that was manifested by teaching righteousness and rules and asking for us to understand,
Right, and lovingly fulfill all the teachings of your Torah. So there's like, it's like a 5-paragraph essay. There's like a opening thesis and then the substantiating evidence, right? You have loved us. How do we know? Or what's the evidence? Because we have all of these, as Craig was saying, customs, traditions, morals, culture that comes down to us. And then may we have the willingness to understand, to follow, to learn, to teach, to observe, and to fulfill the teachings of your Torah be'ahava, with love. And so you'll notice in that in the very first line in the Hebrew, ahava, rabba, ahavtanu, with love, big love, abundant love, you have loved us. And then down at the end of that 3rd paragraph, be'ahava, with love. So there is this, it's like the intro paragraph and the conclusion paragraph are both saying the same thing, that love is the sort of primary, primary thing we draw down. And the way that we draw it down is through learning, teaching, culture, morals. And we do that be'ahava, with love, or through love. And think for a second about how children learn best, or how any of us learn best. Is it when somebody says, do it this way? Or when somebody invites you lovingly into learning? Like, would you mind if I showed you? Or maybe just doing it, your own way, and then somebody sort of pays attention and notices and learns just by being in proximity to somebody they love, who they admire, who they want to maybe be like when they grow up or do things like, right? Love, proximity is such a great teacher. Such a great teacher. And this is like the Jewish way of teaching, is be'ahava, with love. So just to take a moment now and think about the environments in which you've learned a lesson like through discomfort, you know? And because sometimes that's a very powerful teacher too, right? And what I have found is when I have learned lessons through discomfort, but I knew that was coming from a place of love for me. Not physical discomfort, but like intellectual, like pushing me intellectually, spiritually, and knowing like I'm growing through this for a good reason. Usually looking back on that afterward and having that thought in the moment, just being like, rah, not into this, but I get it. Love has to be at the foundation of everything that we learn and that we teach as Jewish people. Rabbi Dina is going to talk about this later, how this shows up in our Torah portion too. It shows up everywhere in the Jewish tradition. It's something to hold on to as we go into the Shema. We want to invite up Daniel to get ready to lead us in that. So we turn to 49. And in honor of Mother's Day, but not just for the moms, for anybody who has been a teacher, who has loved us into learning. This is a prayer to appreciate that, to hold on to that, and to amplify that. Ahava rabba avtanu Adonai Eloheinu Chamla gedola v'tera hamalta aleinu Avinu malkeinu ba'avur avoteinu Shabbat chubecha Shabbat chubecha Avinu malkeinu V'telamdem chukei chayim Ken techonenu telamdenu Avinu ha'av ha'rachaman Ha'merachem rachem aleinu V'ten belibeinu lehavin Lehavin u'lehaskel lishmoa Le'amod u'le'lamed Lishmor ve'lasot U'kayem et kol divrei Talmud Toratecha le'ahav V'ha'er einenu b'toratecha V'dabek libeinu b'mitzvotecha V'yached levaveinu le'ahava u'yirah et shemecha Ve'lo nevo le'olam va'ed Ve'lo nevosh le'olam va'ed Ki v'shem kodshecha hagadol v'hanora v'atachnu Nagila v'nismecha Yeshuatecha We gather the four corners of our tzitzit, v'havienu. V'havienu le'shalom me'arba kavot ha'aretz v'tolichenu komemiyut le'aretz
ישועות אתה, ובנו בחרת מכולם בלשון, וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול סלע ואמת, להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני, הבוחר בעמו ישראל, באהבה.
Shema.
Shema.
Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malhuto Leolam Vaed.
Let's repeat after Daniel. Thank you.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. Turn to 53. ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל, ואמרת עליהם, ועשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם, ונתנו על ציצית הכנף הטיל תכלת, והיה לכם לציצית, וריתם אותו. וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני, ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם, ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, למען תזכרו, ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. You notice we spent a bunch of time every time we said the word tzitzit. Do you know how this custom arose? Do you have any idea? I don't know either, but this is how I learned this prayer. It's just when you say this word, you kiss these little things. You know, what else do we kiss as Jews? Torah, right? That in a moment, you know, we're going to all stand up. The Torah is going to go around. People are going to reach out either with your talis or with a book. Mwah, kiss the Torah. What else? Mezuzah. When you're walking into a doorway, if you see a mezuzah, there's a custom to reach up. Mwah. What else? Books. Yeah, if you drop a book, that's like one of the first thing I learned about Jews and books is A, that we have a lot, and B, when you drop them on the floor, you kiss them. You pick them up. So I do this paragraph with my daughter every night before bed. I tried with my son. He's not as into it as he is into Micha Mocha. I'm trying to basically spoon feed them, maybe force feed them. They don't know yet that I'm teaching them to daven. They think it's just bedtime songs. But every time we get to tzitzit, Adira now goes, kiss me. It's very cute. And now instead of just on the tzitzit things, she does it between every word. So you could just, like, this prayer is therefore filled with love. She's going to walk into services and be disappointed that we're not all just like slobbering all over each other, you know, when she hears this prayer and it's just us and the tzitzit. But it's just, you know, when I said that, like, the theme of love shows up everywhere, it's also, you know, it's not just in the words, ahava, it's also in how we treat our books, how we treat our holy things, how we treat each other relative to these words as well. So now you know.
So now you know. We turn to 57, Micha Mocha. Repeat.
Micha mocha, Bailim Adonai, Micha mocha, Nedar b'kodesh, Nora tehilo, oh sevele, oh sevele, Nora tehilot, oh sevele, shira chadasha, shira chadasha, shivu geuli, leshimcha, al sefataya, yachad kulam, hodu v'hilichu, Adonai yimlok, le'olam ba'ereh, Adonai yimlok, le'olam ba'. We're going to stand to go into this last paragraph. Stand. Bezrat Yisrael, derech lecha, Yehuda We take 3 steps backward and 3 steps forwards in our place. We turn face east. We'll begin together. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot,
ומביא עולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ופוקד צד, middle of 59. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, הוא מתיר אסורים, הוא מקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בגבורות ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה. ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים.
נקדש שמך לעולם כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב בידך וכזלזל ימיו.
נקדש את שמך בעולם כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך וקרא זה אל זה ואמר.
קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות מלך הארץ כבודו.
Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Rabbi Dina, can you take over?
אדוני צבאות מלך הארץ כבודו. אז בקול רעש גדול אדיר וחזק משמיעים קול, מנסים לעומת לעומתם ברוך יאמרו.
Baruch kevod Adonai mimkomo.
ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומך מלכנו תופיע, ותמלוך עלינו כי מחכים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון? בקרוב ימינו לעולם ועד תשכון. תתקדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך לדור ודור, ולנצח נצחים. ועינינו תראינה מלכותך, כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך, על ידי דוד משיח צדקך.
ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהיך ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה.
ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהיך ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושך נקדיש. ושמך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד, כי המלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Amen. The rest of the Amidah is 62 through about 71, and there are a bunch of pages in there that are, sort of expressions of personal prayers. You can find your way through that, or you can just close the book and use this time for a little bit of personal reflection and prayer.
say shalom aleinu ve'al
It's on 73.
Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Amen. Or say shalom b'imroma, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Amen. Oh, say shalom, v'roma, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Oh, say shalom, v'roma, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Amen. Oh, say shalom b'imroma, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Amen. Oh, say shalom b'imroma, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Amen.
May you who makes peace among the cosmos make peace among our nations of the earth, among the peoples of the earth. Peace for Ukraine. Peace for all of the places in the world where there's not. And we say amen. Amen. All right. Good Shabbos, everybody. We're so happy you're here. This is like a nice, intimate morning. And so what we're going to do now is sort of transition from the ethereal singing, the sort of, right brain part of the service into a slightly more left brain part of the service, which is the studying and learning of Torah. And so we're going to do a little bit of resetting up here. So while we do that, I want to invite you to get to know somebody you did not come here with, to just introduce yourself, find out what brought them here this morning, how they're doing, who they are in the world, and we will come back in a few minutes. And feel free to grab a cup of coffee. All right.
We'll be back in a moment. Say hello to the small ones.
Great. Yeah, great idea. Hi, Lilia. What's up? I want you to meet these two wolves because part of our. They're like you'd be friends with them if you were here. But I want to talk to you, but I also have to do this whole reset thing. Naive. Oh, thank you. It's great to see you. It's nice to have you here.
Can someone help me get this table?
Yeah. Oh, this is different. This is different. Yes. Okay. Beautiful. Beautiful. Good. Well, welcome to this flower. Thank you. It's a small morning.
Does this belong to any of you? It's like a external hard drive or something? Oh, got it. It's like a charger. Got it. Thanks. Sky, I knew who you were talking about. Thank you. Great, you're back. Yay.
I was told that Maya Callis has been sitting there asking when I'm going to show up.
Aw.
And so I walk in, I'm like, hi, Maya, and she just freezes.
Aw. All right, I think we're ready.
Is the Torah rolled? I even told Rachel Jimenez to remind you.
No, she didn't remind me, but honestly, this should start, and then you know, while he's talking, but that'll be distracting. It's such a long list. Where is it right now? It's the end of Bar. Are you shitting me?
That's where it was when we read it with Sydney.
Oh my god. I think we should do this in front of everybody. Yeah, I do. Because people have been talking for a long time. This is going to take a long time.
All right.
I think we should just like
We just talk them through all the things we're going to see, or we can sing. Yeah, great.
Great. You know, like we could also we could ask Ellie to do it with you if you want. Like I can sing stuff and like you can help.
There's plenty of people that can do it.
Yeah, no, but I
It just
like
needs to be done.
yeah. Okay.
And also, do you know who you want to call up for the community Aliyah?
Yes. Yeah.
Is it an open invitation, or is it?
It's gonna be. It's basically gonna be people who are here for the first time, and anybody who like hasn't seen a Torah scroll up close and personal.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great. And then I'm going to put this one here. Do you want me to be on this side or that side?
Yeah. Great.
Great.
All right.
Do we have the card, the Aliyah card?
I'm sorry.
Do we have the Aliyah cards?
I don't know where they are.
Okay.
I think we should use the book. We should hand people the book with the page.
Okay.
'Cause I don't know.
Are you Ellie?
Sure.
Nice to see you.
Yeah. Great.
You're the Dina.
Yes. I'm Rabbi Dina.
Dina.
Nice to see you, Ellie.
First time I meet Dina.
The first time.
All right.
Wonderful. Well, now you have met. If you do you want to help us roll the Torah?
It's
That
still
would be
in
helpful.
Dvarim, so.
It's in Dvarim, and we don't want to take the time now, and it's anticlimactic if we bring the Torah.
We're gonna-
I want
yeah.
to bring the Torah out. It'll go around, and then like we're just gonna do it in front of everybody because if we do it now, it'll take time and take out whatever.
We can do it, with, I think with. You stand
Yeah.
here and I'm-
Yeah, we'll just.
Great. Which way? Like this way? You're
Right,
saying?
right.
Ah, interesting.
Because there's no room.
Ah.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. Whatever you can be easier. Great. We'll move these drinks. All right. I think we're ready to rock and roll.
Okay.
All right. All right, beautiful people. We're on page 75. So we're on 75. Ein kamocha ba'Elohim Adonai ve'ein kema'asecha malchutcha malchut kol olamim u'memshalcha b'chol dor v'dor. Thank you. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai yos le'amo yitain, Adonai yivarech et amo b'shalom.
Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Adonai Tzidkenu, From mountain low yachdav,
Lecha Adonai hagedula v'hagevura v'hat. This is the kissing part. Next song, 78. Ki chol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz lecha Adonai ha'amalacha v'haminaseh lechol lerosh. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'nishtachavu leHatorah lakadosh. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'nishtachavu leHakodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai If you're wondering what is happening right now, and you should feel free to come over here and see. They're rolling the Torah to a soundtrack, which we are providing. The last time this particular Torah was read, it was read for verses in Deuteronomy, which is the 5th book of the Torah. We are reading from midway through the book of Leviticus, which is the 3rd book of the Torah. So there's a little bit of rolling to do. The good news is we have some very high qualified high rollers. Torah rollers, I mean. So we can just make some music here while they're getting to Parshat Kedoshim chapter 19, which you'll find in your soft cover red book, the other red book. Leviticus 19 is where we're starting. Prize for anybody who finds it and can announce the page. Drum solo. Woo! We made it. We can take a seat. Daniel is going to introduce us to the Torah reading we are about to open up into in the middle of the book of Leviticus, Vayikra. Thank you, Daniel, for sharing your Torah with us this morning. You're going to speak into that microphone.
So I read the
You're going to tell us, you're going to do your sermon first.
Okay. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
My Torah portion, Parshat Kedoshim, is taken from the book of Leviticus, chapters 19 through 20. Kedoshim is a guide to moral behavior, things that we should and should not do to be a good person and do what God wants and make the world a better place. My Torah portion addresses what morality is and how to be moral. It builds upon the 10 Commandments, adding more detail to some of them and adding other related laws. The words, "You shall be holy, for I, God, am holy," are the keynote of the whole Torah. It's echoing too much. This parsha says these words again and again and helps us understand what holiness is and how to be holy. It suggests things like reverence for parents, consideration for the needy, paying the workers the right amount and making sure workers don't work unfair hours, no unreasonable deadlines, no malice, love of one's neighbor, and being respectful to people you don't know or who you're not used to seeing in your community, equal justice for rich and poor, just means and balances, and avoidance of anything impure or unfit. This parsha shows us how to be holy and emphasizes how important this is, which I think is a way of being moral. The parsha talks about these things together because they are connected to each other. I want to explore the importance of holiness, and my parsha helps us understand holiness and achieve holiness. Another thing my portion talks about is God and how to treat God, which I think is a way of being moral. So, talking about God is another part of analyzing my portion that I would not want to ignore. The Torah gives us a role model on how to be holy, which is God. I think this is similar to thinking of God as like a parent figure. God tells us what to do, and our parents tell us what to do. We look up to our parents, and we want to be like them, but we also have to be our own people. We can't be 100% like God or our parents. We also have to be unique. This concept can be viewed in many ways. The Torah says that God created us in God's image, and our parents create us, so we're in the image of God, and our parents, who are themselves, are in the image of God. We look up to our parents, and we're meant to look up to God. We use God as an example of what to be like, and we look to our parents as an example of what we should do and what we should be like. One part of the parsha talks about how God is perfect and humans are not. But no matter the type of parent you have, the metaphor actually still works. Sometimes parents do the wrong thing because humans are not perfect and make mistakes. But even though the parsha says God is perfect, I don't think that's true. For example, God banishes Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden and is super harsh to them, isn't understanding, instead says humans are horrible and going to suffer horrible things. I understand why God was upset that people disobeyed him, but maybe God did go a little too harsh in the punishment. Another example of this is when Abraham almost sacrificed Isaac because God said to. We could view this as God making a mistake and pushing things too far with Abraham by making him prepare to kill his child, which isn't very godlike. God says, don't kill in the 10 Commandments. We could also view this from God's point of view, where he just got Abraham to follow his rules in religion, and he doesn't really know if Abraham will fully believe and trust in God, because Abraham used to be around idol worshippers. So, to make sure God wasn't wasting his time and effort with Abraham, he tested him to make sure he was loyal. If you think someone might betray you, you want to make sure they won't, which is reasonable. But even if testing was reasonable, it was still a bad thing to do to Abraham. A perfect God would have been trusting in Abraham. Even God isn't perfect in every way, it turns out. That means we should not be too hard on ourselves to do the right thing every time. So we learn how to act from God, but we also learn that falling short is normal. In the Torah, it talks about how we should strive to be like God and follow God's example, but the Torah also acknowledges that no matter how hard we try, we will not be God, and we should accept this reality. So in accepting this, we should try to be ourselves and make our own way of doing things. With parents, we often try to imitate them, especially as a little kid. But as we go older, we start to do things a little differently. This is a good thing because if our parents made certain mistakes, we would not want to make those same mistakes. So we want to be like our parents, but we also want to branch out and learn what not to do. This is like a side note. What most Jewish scholars think about the Abraham and Isaac thing I mentioned earlier was that it was necessary, because a lot of pagan religions, especially at the time, sacrificed humans. And so they say it was important to teach people that you should not sacrifice humans and that you should only sacrifice animals, which obviously had a big impact. Sometimes my parents do things that I don't want to do, and I try to think about whether that thing was good or bad. We should follow our parents' example because they often know what they're doing, which we should try to understand because our parents and God are wiser than us. So in situations where we don't understand something, we might still go along with it because we assume they know what they're doing. And we don't want to live in their shadow and do everything they say and only what they say, because that would make our lives repetitive and boring, and we would miss out on a lot. Sometimes the things we do aren't the right thing to do, but even God does that, so it's okay if we do that sometimes too. We need to take the ideas from the Torah or from our parents and make them our own. We need to figure out what is important to us, where we might need to be more lenient, etc., to make our own moral compass. If the Torah is laws for religious practice, and our parents are like the Torah for our lives, there's other ways we can add to what we learn from them and improve our lives. Like how there's multiple interpretations of the Torah, we can also do that with what we learn from our parents. For example, maybe something was useful at one point, but not anymore. And finally, after reading this parsha, I hope you will think about if the things you do in your life are moral. Are they helping you to live up to the commandment to be holy? We learn from this parsha to think about holiness as something you do, not something you are. Instead of thinking about just going to the synagogue and that means you're holy, you help someone who needs help. There are ways to be holy through what the Torah says, but also in the ways we act around others. Holiness is not just about what the Torah teaches us, but also what will help the world the most, like exercising kindness and compassion. We can view our day-to-day lives as containing holiness in ways we didn't think of before. Maybe that kindness you showed someone else was holiness, but you didn't see it before. When this parsha tells us to be holy, what it means is go out and do good things for others. These are the meanings of the mitzvot, the 613 commandments.
Yasher koach, Daniel, that was beautiful. You can have a seat for a few minutes. Sam, we're going to need you. And we're also going to call up some of Daniel's family members and some of you, and one beautiful couple who is getting married soon. So we'll have a chance to do some interacting with this material. If you did not get a chumash on your way in and you would like one, there are a few still by the front. They come in small and large sizes. And we are reading from the beginning of Parshat Kedoshim, which is
Page 693.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you want to go the other side? Yeah, I'm going to.
Perfect. V'yazor v'yagen v'yahushia l'chol hachosim ba v'nomar amen. Hakol havu godel Eloheinu udnu kavod laTorah ta'amod. Esther v'Moshe, Daniel's grandparents, Ala and Maurice. La'aliyah Rishona, Baruch Shenatan Torah Li'am Yisrael B'Kedushato.
ואתם הדבקים אדוני אלוהיכם, חיים כולכם היום.
ואתם הדבקים באדוני אלוהיכם, חיים כולכם היום. You guys can come on this side.
So come over here, and you can see where Sam is reading from. Here, yes, you can even hold the Torah open. Thank you. Here, come over. So you're going to take your seat. You can just see. And you're going to do at the top.
Baruch Adonai Havoram. Baruch Adonai Havorach Loam Fayed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Olam Asher B'Sher V'nu Mekah HaMiyam V'natan Lanu Et Torato Baruch Atah Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe Lemor. Daber al kol adat bnei Israel. V'amarta lehem kedoshim tiyu. Ki kadosh ani Adonai Elohechem.
694.
Ishimo v'aviv tirahu v'et shabtotai tishmoru. Ani Adonai Elohechem, al tifnu el ha'elilim, ve'Elohei masecha, lo tasu lachem. Ani Adonai Elohechem.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolom Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet. V'chagieo olam nata b'toshenu barak atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Rabbi Lizzie on the other side of
Amen.
Yesher koach. There's a story in the Talmud of a man named Honi who has a lot of power. And one day, Honi sees a person planting a tree, and he's like, that's a carob tree. Those take 70 years to flower. What are you doing? And the guy's like, I'm not planting it for me. I'm planting it for my grandkids. And then Honi falls asleep by the tree for more than 70 years, and he wakes up and he sees someone eating the fruit of the tree. It's like a Shabbos shluff that went wrong. And he wakes up and he sees someone eating that fruit, and he's like, oh my God, because he doesn't know he slept for 70 years. And he's like, how are you eating that? And the person's like, oh, my grandparents planted it for me, and I'm enjoying it. And I always think of that when I see grandparents come up for an aliyah at a BMitzvah, that this moment didn't happen out of nowhere. It happened because you created a tradition that mattered to your family. And you passed it on, and they passed it on, and they made the decision to be here against a lot of adversity, right? I know that reaching this moment was not a given in your family's history. It took choice, and it took conviction, and it took perseverance. And so celebrating this moment for Daniel is celebrating the fruits that you have been planting for so long, and watching that tree come to flower in a way that hopefully is sweet and brings you joy and nourishment. And it's so touching to see that Daniel is able to have this BMitzvah because his family has been making Jewish choices for generations. So may you continue to enjoy having sweet and nourishing grandchildren, and may you be blessed.
Amen, amen. Beautiful. So stay up here while we call up the next aliyah, then you can sit down. For the second aliyah, we wanted to call up anybody for whom it's been a while, maybe since you've seen a Torah scroll up close and personal, and if you're here for the first time. So Ya'amdu, Maya Nora, and Noah Hirschbin, David Pesach. Anybody else? Anybody else? La Aliyah Hashenit. So Noah's gonna lead us in. Yeah.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. V'chi tizbechu zevach shlamim l'Adonai. Litzonechem tizbechu biyom zivchachem yachel umimacharat v'hanotad yom hashlishi ba'esh yisaref ve'im יכול יחל ביום השלישי, פיגול הוא לא ירצה, ואוכליו עוונו יישא, כי את קודש אדוני חילל, ונכרתה הנפש ההיא מימיה. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. So glad to welcome you back, Noah, and I'm glad you brought, you've multiplied. You brought friends. Mary Nora, welcome to Mishkan. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm glad you got to have an opportunity to stand near the Torah. Yeah, and get warm off the vibes. All right. Ta'amdu Leah bat Elisheva v'Shimshon Lazar. There's more to your dad's Hebrew name than that. Like Menachem Mendel Schneerson Lazar. And Danielle La'aliyah Hashlishit. Come on up. Get under your
chalice. That's beautiful. And you can lean in and see where Eli is going to be reading from.
Baruch Adonai Hamorach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim Venatan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Hold on to this for Eli.
Amen. Ufutrechem et ketzir artechem lo techale be'et sarcha liktzor velaket ketzircha lo tilaket bekarmecha lo teolel uperet karmecha lo tilaket La'ani v'lager ta'azov itam ani Adonai Elohechem lo tignovu lo techachashu
Lo tishakru ish
lo
ba'amitovo.
tishakru. Sorry, I just lost my place here. Techachashu
Lo tishakru
lo tishakru
ish ba'amitovo.
ish ba'amito velo tishavu bishmi l'shaker v'chilata ani Adonai velo ta'ashok et re'acha velo tigzol velo talin pe'ulat zachir itcha ad boker lo tekalel cheresh v'lifnei iver lo titen michshol v're'eta me'elohecha ani Adonai.
Turkey finished?
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torat Emet V'chayei Olam Nata Betochenu Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. So Lauren and Danielle, this is is it the week before your wedding? We're in that final week?
Yeah.
And you are here. And months and months and months ago, you wanted to make a priority of showing up in Shul to mark the week that you were going to be entering into marriage together, which you have been planning for about a decade. And by a decade, I mean basically just like pre-pandemic, through the pandemic until now, which at least one of you in this room knows what that feels like. 2 of you in this room knows what that. Anybody else? Okay. No, 3 of you in this room know what that feels like. And it has been a slog. And, there are couples for whom the pandemic actually was a really important time for discernment because they didn't make it to the wedding. And so it was like, well, thank God for that extra 18 months, 2 years. And in your case, you just dreamed deeper and became more creative and resourceful. It was not an easy couple of years. And here you are standing together, affirming your love and entering into this moment in community, in this community, in your wider community. And I just want you to behold how affirmed you are in that. The verses in the Torah we just read are the ones that Daniel was describing as sort of the ones that make us proudest of this ancient tradition, and I'll just read them out loud. Don't steal. Don't deal deceitfully with one another. Don't defraud your neighbor. Don't commit robbery. The wages of a laborer should not stay with you until the morning. Don't insult the deaf or place a stumbling block before the blind. When you reap the harvest of your land, leave some at the edges of the field for the poor and the stranger to pick up. And we in this community really believe like the highest aspirations of the tradition are the ones we should be shooting for. And so when we encounter parts of the Torah that are like the opposite of this, and that include verses, including in this week's Torah portion actually, that don't sort of achieve that level of moral excellence, then it is our job to get it there. Then it is our job to get it there. And so I am so grateful for your participation in this community so that we together can continue to build a tradition that gets us there. So, Mazel Tov to you. Mazel Tov. Candy intro and we will sing Siman Tov. Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Siman Tov, Siman Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Siman Tov, Siman Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Siman Tov. It's called Shehecheyanu, a blessing for first moments. But I feel like this is a first moment, especially for you, Danielle. So blessed is the one who has brought you into this moment, held you up in life, and kept you healthy to arrive at this day.
Amen.
Amen. So come on over here. You're going to hang out while we pause for a moment. Yeah, stay up here. We're going to pause and pray for the healing and health of our community. Anybody who you may be thinking of who needs a prayer. The words for this are on 82. You may know them. I'll invite you to stand if there's somebody who you're thinking about, who you want to say their name out loud and get this whole room full of people and people in the interwebs praying for the health and healing of folks in your life. So go ahead and stand. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless all of the ones that you are about to name. We sing.
Avoteinu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing. And let us say, Amen. Anybody over here thinking of somebody?
My grandmother, Celia Rios-Becker, and Ruth Labatsky.
And anybody you might be thinking about, you're just holding in your heart.
Mishebeirach imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. The renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Refuah shlema, complete and speedy recovery. do Ina and Craig, also known as Kalman Lieben Moshe and Rachel Bat Esther La'aliyah Harivi'it.
Take your Kelly. You're going to touch where Eli's showing you.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher B'Chashar B'Mikal Halmayin V'Natan La'enu Et Torato Baruch Atah Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen. We're on 696. Thank you. Verse 15.
Amen. Lo ta'asu avel b'mishpat. Lo tisa p'nei dal v'lo tedar p'nei gadol. B'tzedek tishbot amitecha. Lo telech rechil be'amecha. Lo ta'amod al dam re'echa. Ani Adonai. Lo tisna et achicha bilvanecha chocheach. Tochiach et amitecha, velo tisa alav chet. Lo tikom velo tor et b'nei amitecha, et b'nei amecha. Ve'ahavta l're'acha kemocha, ani Adonai.
That's where he finished.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet V'chai Ye Olam Natav Batochenu Baruch Atah Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen. Lizzie.
Here, come here.
It's always fun to work with a BMitzvah student and to hear all the things they have to say, which are often not this, not this, not this. And it's very rare to find a BMitzvah student who wants to give a Dvar Torah that is largely about being like their parents. That is clearly a testament to the two of you and the love that I have seen you bring to Daniel and to this process and to each other over the past year, and the ways in which you create a space that allows Daniel to say, I think I want to be like those people. They seem like good people. I think largely that's a good way to be in the world. So as you welcome your son up to the Torah as a Jewish adult, I hope that you have the chance to see how good of a job you've done, that you have put so much into Daniel and into this moment to ensure that he can stand up here with wisdom and poise and share that with us, and that doesn't come from nowhere, that comes from the ways that you've raised him. We talked in KBM about this idea that when a child becomes BMitzvah, there's a blessing that parents sometimes say that's like, thanks for releasing me from obligation for this one, which is like appropriate for teenagers. And also, there is a moment in BMitzvah in which you get to watch your child do the things that you had hoped for them and do them well, and to feel like you did that. Daniel did not grow up out of the grass without any kind of nourishment. He got so much nourishment and love from you. He got to this moment because you shepherded him there with love and care and affection. And I hope that as you watch him reach this moment and have his first aliyah to the Torah, that you get to give yourselves a pat on the back and say, we did this and we did good. All right. Ya'amod, 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 Habachor Habar Mitzvah, Daniel ben Kalman V'Rachel, La'aliyah Chamishit.
We're on 697.
Let's find where you're reading. It should be right near the bottom. It starts with. Okay, right here. Okay, so take your tzitzit and touch right here. Let's put the yad there so we don't lose it. There you go. Now kiss.
Oh, this part is falling.
Baruch
Baruchu et Adonai Hamevarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamarach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamevarach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher baharbanu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai notain ha'torah.
Amen.
Et tukutai tishmoru. Behem teha lo terbia kil ayim, sadeha lo tizra kil ayim, uveged kil ayim shatnez lo ya aleha.
698.
Ve'ish ki ishkav et isha shifat zeret ishika nechrafet le'ish vehofte lo niftata o hufsha lo nitanla. Bikoret tihiye lo yimtu kilo hufasha. Vehiper alav hagar.
Behive.
Oh, vehiv.
Behivi.
Where am I? Oh. Skipped a part. Yeah, Vehavi et Ashamo Ladonai el Petach o Moed el Asham. Vehiper alav hakohen ve'el ha'asham lifnei Adonai el hadato asher hata v'nislach lo mahadato asher hata. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher natan lanu torat emet v'haye olam nata be'Eloheinu. Baruch atah Adonai notain ha'torah.
Amen. All right, I think you have something sweet in your hands. Hold on to it for a moment. I'll tell you when it's time to throw. Daniel, you did it.
Yeah.
You just read from the ancient scroll words that you already have taken to heart about how to be a good person, about how to act with morality in the world. When we first started to talk about your Dvar Torah, immediately you said to me, this is about morality. And I was like, interesting. I think it's about holiness. And you then convinced me that holiness is a form of morality. And you did it by considering opinions of others, by caring what the commentators had to say, and what your parents had to say, and what Ellie had to say, and what I had to say. You took all of these opinions into account, and from these disparate ideas, you cooked up something unique and special that was a reflection of you and the way that you are in the world. And that is exactly what we celebrate at BMitzvah. The fact that you have opinions that you have built from your own sense of self and from the different inputs you've gotten in your life, and you've done it so beautifully that as we say this blessing over you and then we shower you with candy, what we're really doing is blessing ourselves that we are so lucky to call you a member of the Jewish people. So I'm going to invite everyone who is here to stretch your hands forward if you would like to. I'm going to sing the priestly blessing for Daniel, and then I will say Mazel Tov, and that Mazel Tov is your cue to shower him with sweetness, to welcome Daniel as a full member of the Jewish people, as a Jewish adult. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka, Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May you be blessed and have light shine upon you metaphorically and literally. May you have peace and all things that are good. Mazel tov! Mazel tov! We're here for you. So this goes off the end of the table. You're going to have to hold on to both. Can you hold on to both, Bob? Yeah, hold on to both sides. No, you're going to hold here. You're going to go like this, pull. You're going to press it down and then lift straight up, okay? I'm going to spot you. Press down. Vezot HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai v'yad Moshe. As long as the Torah is standing and out of the ark. We turn to 92. Yasher Koach, much strength to everybody who did something in this Torah service, which is almost all of you, because even if you weren't up here, you were like responding to a blessing from your seat. We can take a seat now. So for people who are tuning in for the first time, with us for the first time, welcome to Mishkan. Hello. It's great to be here with you, and it's great to do Shabbat with you. As I came here this morning,
looking at the sun, I feel like for the first time in Chicago in like a couple days, I thought about how many people might have thought like, oh, you know, I was going to go to Shul, but it's beautiful out. I'm going to go to Shul outside with the trees, you know? And it's one of the reasons why I imagine the tradition says, if you're going to pray, pray in a place with windows, you know? Because there's something about nature that inspires religious thoughts and feelings and spirituality. And so we're lucky that we get to, you know, see not just trees, but also the city. And there's another place in the Torah actually where Noah's instructed to build an ark. God says, build it with a window. Because Noah knew what was happening out there, right? While he was inside safely in his ark, he could see out the window. And he knew that the world was being remade. And it was probably actually terrifying. But there was something about being in this like sort of protected space that helped him feel fortified and that gave him the resources he needed internally to then help remake the world when he came out of the ark. And I feel a little bit like that's kind of what Shabbat is, you know, like gaining some fortitude and some resources inside a safe and protected place with people, you know, that you share something with. And maybe this is the first time you're hearing a lot of these words of Torah or tunes or words, and yet we do share something because we're all here. So I hope that this has been and will be over the next 20 minutes fortifying for you to go back out into the world, you know, for this day and for whatever it is that you're doing to create the world, as we all do in some way just by existing in it. Mishkan has a bunch of things coming up in the next couple of weeks, like you can learn how to learn Talmud if you want online. If you've been thinking for a while, maybe you actually want to join the community as a builder. We have a new builder orientation happening this week, and so now is a great time to do that. And then, well, let's see, I think the only toddlers in here just left, and I don't think Jack qualifies as a toddler, so then never mind. And we have a support group about to start later in May, both for sort of trans and non-binary and questioning teens and youth, and then also parents of trans and non-binary and questioning teens and youth. So that's if that is of interest, look into that. It's all online. And I guess the last thing to say is we are still trying to raise $100,000 for the Mensch Academy. And so I feel like I have to mention it everywhere because every little bit counts. It is a matching fundraiser. So the closer we get to that 100, the more we will get matched. And Daniel, you came up through the Mensch Academy, yeah? I don't know. What do you think? Thumbs up?
It definitely prepared me for the bar mitzvah.
That's a strong
Great endorsement.
All right. So if supporting the next generation of Jewish education in ways that are life-affirming and that are student-centered is interesting to you, whether or not you have a kid who goes there or will ever have a kid who goes there, I invite you to support. So thank you. Over to you.
All right. So maybe you didn't catch it. Went by quickly. We read the most important part of the entire Torah today. That's not my claim. That's Rabbi Akiva's claim, who says the line, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself, ze klal gadol b'Torah. That is the great principle of the Torah. There's another story about these lines in which a person who is sort of like maybe considering becoming Jewish comes to Rabbi Hillel and he says, Hillel, teach me all of the Torah while I stand on one foot. If you have good balance, this isn't a challenge, but if you're a low balance challenge, it's a little harder. And Hillel says, that which is hateful to you, don't do to the fellow. That's it. The rest is commentary. Go learn it. Hillel was quoting from this week's Parsha, which says, that which is hateful to you, don't do to your fellow. You can rebuke them, but don't do something that you would hate if it happened to you back to them. And then it says, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your neighbor, your fellow, as yourself. So I want to pose the question to you and invite you to turn to someone near you and ask, why, of all of the things in the Torah, many of which are beautiful, and we get 40-some mentions of Shabbat, why is this verses 17 and 18, Leviticus 19 verses 17 and 18, it is, if you're still holding your Chumash, pages 696 on to 697, Why is this the most important set of verses in the entire Torah, according to two rabbis who are way more famous and wise than me? Okay, so turn to someone near you, take a few minutes. Verses 17 and 18, what do they say, and why is this the most important thing in the entire Torah? Okay?
All right. Hello,
Matthew, what do you think?
I'm just trying to like stay aware. I'm in so much pain. So sorry. I'm trying to be present, but
or give constructive feedback at Amitecha to your people.
yeah.
Below Tisna,
It's okay.
which is also a different word, by the way. This is Tisna but don't incur guilt because of him. Or maybe because of you, because of your hatreds or your tikkun, titor. Do not take vengeance. Do not bear a grudge. At B'nai Amitecha, toward the fellow like yourself. So here's a third word for her, how to relate to people. So, love your neighbor as yourself. I am God. All right. What do we got? Wise rabbis of the people who are at Mishkan this morning. Rabbi just means great one, by the way. Anyone have thoughts on why these verses? What's so important about these particularly? The whole essence of the Torah is this. Elliot, looks like you're being voluntold to share your thoughts.
As a sort of like how to keep Judaism and Jewish people alive and flourishing, sort of built-in interdependence. We cannot do this by ourselves.
Love that. So it's a how to keep Judaism alive and flourishing and a recognition of our interdependence, that we can't do this by ourselves. I'm just repeating it for the sake of people who are on camera. Great, great. So Ellie's noting that the word re'acha doesn't just mean fellow Jews, it means everyone in humanity. We are beholden not just to our particular community, but to all other human beings of all shapes and sizes and colors and stripes and backgrounds and wherever they are. Great, love that. One or two more thoughts on why these verses?
I like verse 17.
Uh-huh.
Because it makes it's okay to be in conflict with other people. It's okay to say, like, I don't think you're doing a good thing and I'm going to tell you about it, but it's not okay to sort of like get sucked into hatred of that person and like, violent attitudes toward them.
Great. So Lilia is saying it's okay to be in conflict. It's okay to disagree with each other and call that out. It's not okay to do it in a way that is hateful or to hate that person because you disagree with them. Amazing. Anything else? Abby, you look like you have something wise to say.
I was thinking about how this is, it doesn't mention God. How can this be the summary of the Torah if it doesn't mention God? To me, treating your neighbors who you'd like to be treated is a good way to honor God.
Amazing. So Abby's noting that these two verses actually don't mention God until the very end when it just says, I'm God. right? And so the way that we honor God is by honoring each other. That's a little bit of what Daniel was saying as well. Okay, Frank.
Interestingly, this has made its way into labor relations.
Say more.
A discipline is supposed to be corrective rather than punitive. You go in front of any arbitrator, and a discipline that goes kind of beyond seeking to correct and simply to punish, employers are going to get overruled.
Amazing. So Frank is noting that in labor law, which Frank knows a lot about, if any of you are interested, this ethos of we want to engage in corrective behavior, not punitive behavior, is what's so important. That anything that becomes punitive doesn't stand in a labor court. Corrective action is fine, right? Is good. We want to be doing that. It reminds me of what we talk about every year around the high holidays, that the word for sin, chet, is also used in archery for an arrow that goes off course, right? So the idea being that our actions are things that we're aiming towards an idea of holiness, like Daniel talked about. But sometimes we go off course. And so the recourse for that is to try again, to bring it back towards what you were aiming for. Amazing. Thank you all for your thoughts. If you have other ones, I'd love to hear them at Kiddush. I want to note a couple of things about, do we have another thought? Someone's pointing me towards. Someone else has something? Okay, yes.
It indicates to you, that if you show love for others, you show love for yourself. And if you show love for yourself, you realize maybe your love for yourself is more than love for your neighbor. So you increase your love for your neighbor. And what happens is that is essential. There is a progressive, growth of the individual and therefore the community.
Yeah, amazing. Cycle. Yeah, so Ellie's noting that when it says love your neighbor as yourself, you have to oftentimes realize, I love myself more than I love you. Like I'm, when it comes down to it, I'm going to take that corner piece of cake, unless it's your birthday, in which I'm going to begrudgingly offer it to you, right? And so that helps us check in with I guess I don't love my neighbor enough. So then we love our neighbor more, but then we're always going to look out for number one. So we're going to start loving ourselves a little more, and then it's going to catch up, right? And so it's a way to actually increase the love in the world. I love that. Okay, so I want to make just a couple I want to draw a few little crystals out of this. The first is that both Rabbi Akiva and Hillel, they're talking about what seems like the same thing, but is actually two different laws. One is don't do something hateful to someone else, right? One law is if it's bad for you, don't do it to them. Separately, love them the way you love yourself. Those are not just two ways of framing the same thing. I think they're really teaching us two different things. The first one is teaching us to do no harm, right? As Lilia said, to engage someone in a process of growth, to engage them in a process of corrective action, but not to do them something that would cause them any harm, no matter how forcefully you disagree with them. You cannot do something that will hurt another person emotionally, physically, spiritually, no matter what, right? That is a klal gadol b'Torah. You can never cross a line in which you engage in hurtful behavior. The second commandment, to love someone the way that you love yourself, is just as Ellie was saying, to create the world that you want to live in for them. The ways that you want to be treated well, go back and do that to them. To think about what matters most to you, but not just to do exactly that, right? Loving, I gave a drash about love a few months ago. You have to figure out what makes someone else feel loved. So you have to think about the feelings that you experience of being loved, and then get to know that other person intimately enough to figure out how to make them feel that, right? I talked about love languages. If your love language is gifts, but someone else isn't, you can't just give them gifts because you would like them. That's loving yourself. You have to figure out what's going to make them feel loved, and then you have to do that for them. You have to create a world that gives them that environment. So, as with any big event that happens in the United States, in the world news, I'm finding it very hard to read these verses without thinking about the news that came out of the Supreme Court this week. that the Supreme Court stands poised to overrule, to reverse the ruling on Roe versus Wade. And I'm finding it very hard to stomach the idea that they're going to gut more than nearly half a century of basic rights, like in a moment. And it's about pregnancy, but it's also about all sorts of other rights to privacy and self-determination that are being taken away from us. And by us, I mean, yes, people who have the biological ability to give birth, but also an us who includes anyone who has been marginalized and oppressed, because that is what this is about, is taking away power from people who have slowly been gaining it, right? And as Justice Alito wrote, like literally pushing us back to a time where those rights didn't exist for everyone. So last year, not last year, a couple months ago? February?
May as well have been last year.
In the year 2042 BCE, Rabbi Lizzie gave a drash about how abortion access and all medical access is a Jewish issue. And if you are curious about that reasoning and about why, more than almost anything else, the Jewish community stands united in its commitment to ensuring abortion access for people, I encourage you to check out her drash. That's not really what I'm talking about tonight. What I want to do is bring us to how these verses from our Parsha help us respond to this moment. So these two commandments, to do no harm and to actively create a world that loves other people, they're linked by proximity in the Torah, but they're also linked thematically in the ways that they teach us to interact with people who are hard to be with and easy to be with. I am very angry, and I am horrified, and I'm devastated, and I'm disgusted. Like, I'm so many feelings, and I will admit, I have done more than a little bit of doom scrolling the last week, and I have found myself like angry chuckling at a couple of memes that say mean things about the people who are pushing for this change. But that is not, as Daniel taught us earlier, the way towards holiness. It is not what the Torah is asking of us. It might feel good to me in the moment, but it's not creating anything positive for me or anyone else. That's not the kind of holy action that our Parsha is telling us when it says, Ani Adonai, be like me, be holy. So instead, I'm trying to put these verses into action together. I'm trying to find ways, as Lilia said, to call out hateful speech, not by returning it with hateful speech, but by saying, how else can we have this conversation? That is hateful to me. You are causing me pain with the ways that you are talking and with the things that you are doing, right? The phrase, hocheach tochiach, you will surely rebuke the other person, tells us that we cannot put our hands over our ears. We can't enter our own little bubble. We can't say to ourselves, Illinois protects abortion access, so actually I don't need to be that worried, and I'm going to just like, boop. It teaches us not to say something snarky or mean in return to something snarky or mean. It teaches us that taking revenge is not going to move anyone anywhere, emotionally, physically, spiritually, politically, legally. Revenge is not our answer here. Mean-spirited actions are not the kind of holy behavior that I want to engage in. What I am doing is pushing back on that hateful speech and also doing things that create more love in the world, like donating to abortion access funds and calling my local and federal politicians and saying, I want you to support greater legal access to this. I want you to support policies that will enact this into law so that it doesn't have to be a question. I'm donating to things like lactation consultants and doulas and encouraging my elected officials to support paid parental leave for everybody and to support greater access to fertility treatments, because all of these things are the kind of loving world that makes parenting becoming a person who creates another human, who welcomes another human into their life. These create the kind of world that is full of love that I want to live in. And I don't know what someone else needs, but I do know that someone needs those things. These feel to me like actions of love, not just because they create a world of love that I want, but because I can think of people I know in this community and in my life who need all of those things, who need diapers that they can't afford, who need access to fertility treatments that they can't afford, I know people who have children who need a good and loving home, and I know people who have welcomed children that need a good and loving home into theirs. These are the things that I do out of love because I love people who need them. And that in return increases my own love for myself, my community, each other. We can build a world that supports all of these decisions, the ability of birthing people and people who want to be parents to access that way to give of themselves, right? Being a parent is an act of love. We can create a world that has more love, that loves our fellow as ourself, by making sure that that is possible and that the person who makes the decision about that is the person who will be impacted by it. And then we can hope that they will also listen to the Torah and that they will do the same for us, that they will also be building a world that supports our ability to make decisions about the kind of love that we create and give to others. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Shkoyach. We're going to stand. We're going to turn to 108. Invite you to face east. Alinu lechaveach
Adonai kol la'tetkenu la'leotzeh Bereshit shelo asanu k'guyei ha'arasot ve'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama shelo sam chalkenu kahem ve'gor aleinu k'chol hamonam
109. Ve'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu shehu notei shamayim ve'yosei haaretz u'moshav yikaro b'shamayim ima. You can turn around. U'shrinat tuzov, u'shrinat tuzov, v'gokei meromim. Ki Adonai hu Elohim b'shamayim ima ve'al haaretz mitachat einod einod. Bottom of 110. V'nema v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo Kaddish Yatom Mourner's Kaddish is on page 111. I'll just look around the room if there's anybody whose name you want to say, whose memory you want to honor this morning. Yehi zichronam livracha. May all of their memories be blessings. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah.
Amen.
Ve'alma tirach hirutei ve'amlich malchutei v'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye dechol Beit Yisrael b'agala uvizman kari v'imru. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah nevorach leolam ulamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yit'aleh v'yit'halal shmei d'kudusha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran ve'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav
hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. 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 Yasher koach. We're gonna move into Kiddush and Motzi, blessing wine, blessing bread, and then breaking bread together, and moving into the third very important part of Shabbat services, which is not services but eating. So thank you. Thanks, Zach. We're on 112 as Zach brings this up. Thank you so much, and thank you to the Roth and Drut family for helping us enjoy, not just spiritual nourishment, but also physical nourishment today. Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra, V'nasa, V'chefzo Kol, Hazai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, Ve'acharei Kichlot Hakol, Levado Yimloch Nora Adon Olam, Ve'hu Haya, Ve'hu Hoveh, Ve'hu Yeh B'tifara Adon Olam. We're gonna keep going. Ve'hu Echad, Ve'en Sheni, Lehamshilo Le'achbira Adon Olam, Ve'li Reishit, Ve'li Tachlit, Ve'lo Ha'oz Ve'ha'misra Adon Olam, Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra, Le'nasa, V'chefzo Kol, Hazai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon. Last stanza. Ve'yado Akid Ruchi, Ve'tishan Ve'ayira Adon Olam, Ve'im Ruchi Geviati, Adonai li ve'lo ira, Adon Olam. Kiddush is on 113.
V'shamru
Bnei Yisrael et HaShabbat,
לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. זכור את יום השבת לקודשו, ששת ימים תעבוד ועשית כל מלאכתך, ויום השביעי שבת לאדוני אלוהיך. לא תעשה כל מלאכה, אתה ובנך וביתך, עבדך ואמתך ובהמתך וגרך אשר בשעריך. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, את הים ואת כל אשר בם, וינח ביום השביעי. על כן ברך אדוני את יום השבת ויקדשהו סברי
לחיים.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם בורא פרי הגפן.
Ooh. Fancy pants. I'm going to bring them this way, and everybody can sort of take a step in, because I'm going to send one this way and send one that way in just a moment. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shalom. Here, take a whole challah, take a piece, and pass it around.
Nothing we love more than communally touched bread.
Shabbat shalom.
Started in the back.
Love your neighbor like yourself by leaving a little of yourself on your bread for them.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Shkoyach.
not.
You are not.
So for people staying for lunch, which I hope you are, just bring your chair over to a table. And then lunch is out in the hallway.
Thank you, Frank.
Back in.